Willy Voss slams the Panzer III into reverse, tracks chewing the soft earth into clods the size of fists. The Maybach howls. Steel screams against steel as the gearbox protests. Kurt Riefenstahl braces one hand on the turret ring, the other clamped to his throat microphone. Loader high explosive. Becker, traverse left 30 degrees. But the T-34s are already splitting. 3 veering north, 2 south, the rest boring straight in like wolves through sheep. Their wide tracks barely sink in the loam. The Panzer III's narrower ones bog with every meter. A second Soviet shell punches the air overhead, detonating 20 meters behind in a blossom of orange and black. Shrapnel pings off Threepnev's rear deck like hail on a tin roof. Inside the turret, the temperature spikes. Sweat beads under Kurt's black wool collar. He smells cordite, hot oil, and the sour tang of fear. Range? 1200 and closing fast. Becker's voice cracks. The Zeiss optics fill with the lead. T-34, green paint, chipped to bare steel. Red star stenciled on the turret side. A commander in a soft cap standing half out of the cupola. One arm raised in lazy signal. He looks almost bored. Kurt's finger tightens on the trigger. The 50mm spits flame. The shell strikes the T-34's glacis plate dead. Center. Sparks. A white scar. The Russian tank doesn't even slow. Then the steppe erupts. From a shallow dip the Germans never saw, 2 more T-34s rise like ghosts, guns already traversing. One fires. The shell whistles low, clips the edge of a following Panzer IV, and the 30-ton machine flips onto its side in a fireball that paints the dawn orange, screams over the radio net. Unit cohesion fractures in an instant. Break left! Break left! Someone shouts. But left is a drainage ditch, right is open ground, and straight ahead the T-34s keep coming. 45-degree sloped armor shrugging off everything the Panzers throw. Kurt's loader, Gefreiter Karl-Heinz Müller, rams another AP round home. His hand shakes so badly the shell clangs against the breech. Loaded! Fire! The recoil slams Kurt back against the turret wall. The round strikes the same lead T-34 on the track guard. Metal peels away. The track snaps. The Russian tank slews sideways, shedding road wheels like broken teeth. For one heartbeat, the German crew dares to hope. Then the T-34's turret rotates with mechanical calm. The long 76.2mm barrel, lowering until it stares straight down. 312's throat. You can almost see the Russian gunners grin through the sight. The world shrinks to the black hole of that muzzle. Kurt's mouth forms a word no one hears. The T-34 fires. A hammer blow. The Panzer III lurches sideways, engine coughing black smoke. Alarms shriek. Kurt's ears ring. He tastes blood. Through the smoke he sees the T-34 roll past. Close enough to read the chalked name on the hull. Zarodinu, for the motherland. It doesn't even stop to finish them. Why waste a second shell on a dying machine? Radio chatter collapses into static and panic. 312 hit. Engine fire. He abandoned. Kurt kicks the hatch. Hot air rushes in, carrying the stench of burning rubber and flesh. He drags Becker out by the collar. The gunner's left arm hangs wrong, bone jutting through the sleeve. Willy Voss stumbles from the driver's seat, face black with soot, eyes wide as saucers. Behind them, the steppe is littered with burning Panzers, silhouettes against the rising sun. The T-34s have already vanished into the haze, engines fading like thunder rolling away. Kurt kneels in the grass, clutching a twisted piece of track link, still warm from the explosion. The laughter from breakfast feels a lifetime ago. In less than 5 minutes, the myth of German invincibility has cracked wide open. And somewhere out there, the Red Army is just getting started. But the real shock is still coming. A single photograph snapped by a Soviet war correspondent will reach Berlin within weeks and change everything. A black Mercedes staff car crunches to a halt on the gravel outside the map room. Dust swirls in the pine-scented air. Inside, the temperature is already stifling. The wooden barracks smell of fresh-cut timber and hot tar paper. Adolf Hitler stands over the situation table, one hand drumming the oak edge, the other pinching a photograph between thumb and forefinger. The image is grainy, high contrast, taken with a Fed camera from a T-34's cupola. It shows a knocked-out Panzer III, turret blown open like a tin of sardines, while 3 T-34s roll past in perfect formation, crews lounging in the hatches as if on parade. Chalked across the lead tank's glacis, Za Berlin to Berlin. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian, architect of Blitzkrieg, feels the room tilt. He has seen the first field reports. 18th Panzer Division mauled. 42 tanks lost in a single morning. Crews babbling about sloped monsters that eat 50mm shells for breakfast. But this photograph, this single frozen moment, turns rumor into prophecy. Hitler's eyes flick up, cold and flat. Explain, one word. A guillotine. Guderian swallows. The T-34's armor is cast at 45 degrees, mein Führer. Our standard AP round glances off unless we close to under 500 meters. Their Christie suspension. He stops. Hitler's knuckles whiten on the photo. Around the table, faces drain. Franz Halder, chief of the OKH, stares at the floor. Alfred Jodel's monocle glints like a coin in a grave. No one mentions the captured Soviet intelligence summary found in a burning KV-1 2 days earlier. German tank crews display overconfidence. Recommend massed T-34 counterattacks at dawn. The Red Army knew. They knew before the first shot. Back on the steppe, Kurt Riefenstahl limps through a field hospital near Rovno. Left arm in a sling, uniform stiff with dried blood. A Luftwaffe courier shoves a copy of Signal. Magazine under his nose. Propaganda edition, July 7th. The cover, smiling Lancers handing chocolate to Ukrainian children. Inside, a small box article. Minor skirmishes on the frontier. Enemy armor obsolete. Kurt laughs until the stitches in his side split. He tears the page out, crumples it, and uses it to light a cigarette with shaking fingers. The smoke tastes of defeat. That night, in a railway siding outside Dubno, Lieutenant Michael Wittmann, future ace, currently commanding a platoon of Panzer III's in the 15th Panzer Regiment, stares at a captured T-34 under floodlights. The beast squats on its wide tracks like a toad. Diesel fumes curling from the exhaust. Wittmann runs a hand along the glacis. The weld lines are crude, the paint thin, but the slope... He taps it with a knuckle, solid. A mechanic prizes open the driver's hatch. Inside, room for 5, rubber floor mats, a thermos bolted to the bulkhead. Compared to the Panzer III's sardine can interior, it feels like a palace. Wittmann's driver whispers, "They'll be in Warsaw by autumn at this rate." Wittmann doesn't answer. He's already calculating angles, distances, the exact point where a 75mm KWK-40 might punch through. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Marshal Georgy Zhukov pores over aerial reconnaissance. Red pins march west like a tide. He taps a photograph of his own, same battle, different angle. A column of burning panzers, a lone T-34 silhouetted against the flames, turret defiantly turned toward the camera. Zhukov smiles, thin and wolfish. "Send more," he tells his aide. "I'll send them until the fascists choke on steel." By midnight, the photograph from the steppe has been reprinted in OKW briefings, smuggled to London by a Swedish diplomat, and pinned to a factory wall in Chelyabinsk, above the slogan, "Every shell for the T-34 is a shell for victory." A single image, traveling faster than any army, is rewriting the war. But the true reckoning is still weeks away. In the frozen hell of December outside Moscow, that same T-34 design will meet a desperate German gamble and decide the fate of an entire front. The temperature is -38 Celsius. Your breath crystallizes before it leaves your lips. Snow squeaks under felt-wrapped boots like broken glass. Panzer Grenadiers of the 11th Panzer. Division huddle around a dying fire made from a shattered T-34 road wheel, faces black with frostbite. Their Panzer III's sit in a ragged line, engines wrapped in quilts, radiators drained to keep them from splitting. One tank, number 411, refuses to start at all. The crew has pissed into the fuel tank to thin the frozen diesel. The smell lingers like a bad joke. Oberleutnant Joachim Keller, company commander, stamps feeling into his feet and studies the tree line through a pair of captured Soviet binoculars. White camouflage smocks blend with the birch trunks. Nothing moves. Then the wind shifts, carrying the low, unmistakable growl of V2 diesel engines. Keller's stomach knots. He knows that sound now. T-34s, not the scattered dozens of June, but hundreds, rolling off the assembly lines of factory number 183 in Kharkov, Stalingrad Tractor Works, Uralmash. Every factory the Luftwaffe swore it had bombed to rubble. The first T-34 breaks cover at 800 meters, whitewashed hull almost invisible against the snow. Behind it, a second, a third, then a wave. Their turrets traverse with the lazy confidence of June all over again. Keller's radio crackles. All units open fire at will. The 50mm guns cough. Shells strike. Sparks. Ricochets. One T-34 loses a track to a lucky hit and slews into a drift, but the others keep coming. Keller watches a Panzer III, his own 412, take a 76 2mm round square in the turret front. The hatch blows upward on a pillar of flame. No one gets out. Inside a command half-track, Generaloberst Hermann Hoth, commander of Panzer Group 3, slams a gloved fist on the map table. His chief of staff spreads fresh reconnaissance photos, columns of T-34s and KV-1s. Stretching back to the Volga, supply dumps the size of towns, railheads disgorging flat cars loaded with fresh tanks under the cover of blizzards. Hoth's voice is hoarse. Where are our Panthers? Our Tigers? The answer is a shrug. The first Panther prototype is still on a test track in Germany. The Tiger exists only in blueprints. What rolls toward Moscow is the Panzer III with its pop-gun 50 Magnums, and the T-34 with its sloped armor and a gun that can kill at a kilometer. Keller abandons 412 and sprints for a tree line, bullets snapping branches overhead. He dives into a snow-filled ditch beside a frozen stream. A T-34 rumbles past, close enough that he can read the frost-rhyme slogan on the turret, Za Stalina. The commander, a woman in a fur ushanka, stands in the hatch, scarf whipping like a banner. She doesn't even glance down. To her, the ditch is just another obstacle. Keller presses his face into the snow and tastes iron. By noon, the 11th Panzer has lost 28 tanks. The survivors fall back through the ruins of Kryokovo, burning fuel dumps lighting the sky like false dawns. Keller hitches a ride on a retreating Kubelwagen, the driver's hand so numb he steers with his elbows. In the rearview mirror, the T-34s keep coming, tracks throwing up rooster tails of snow, engines singing the same song they sang in June. Only now the song is louder, closer, unstoppable. That night in a schoolhouse turned command post, Keller writes a letter home he will never send. We laughed at them once, now they laugh at us. The steppe is theirs again. He folds the paper, tucks it inside his paybook, and steps outside to watch the northern lights dance above the burning horizon. Somewhere out there, the Red Army is loading fresh shells into fresh T-34s, and tomorrow the myth of German armor will be buried for good under 6 feet of Russian snow. But one man, watching from a frozen ridge, is already sketching a counterstroke that will turn the T-34's greatest strength into its fatal flaw. Heat shimmers off the sunflower fields like a blast furnace. The air is thick with grass pollen, cordite, and the copper stink of blood. You can taste the iron on your tongue before you see the battlefield. Oberstleutnant Franz Beke, commander of the 11th Panzer Regiment's Heavy Tank Company, stands in the cupola of Tiger 100, sweat carving pale channels through the dust on his cheeks. His new mount, a 56-ton monster with an 88mm K-36 that can gut a T-34 at 2,000 meters, growls beneath him, engine idling like a caged lion. Around him, the steppe is a junkyard of steel, burned-out T-34 hulls, some still smoldering, others flipped onto their backs like dead beetles. But the horizon keeps birthing more, hundreds more. Bake's radio crackles with static and desperation. Rotmistrov's 5th Guards tank army breaking through Sector 7. Request immediate support. He doesn't need the plea. He can see them. Wave after wave of T-34-76 and T-34-80 Fusée charging in loose formation, engines screaming at full throttle, guns blazing on the move. Soviet crews have learned new tricks, welding extra track links to the glacis, filling sandbags on the engine decks, even hanging bed frames to pre-detonate Panzerfausts. But the Tiger's 100mm frontal plate laughs at 76mm shells. The 88mm does not laugh, it kills. Target tank, 1,200 meters, T-34 leading the left column. Fire! The Tiger rocks back on its suspension. The shell arcs, invisible until it punches through the T-34's turret ring in a jet of orange fire. The Russian tank keeps rolling for 3 more seconds. Driver already dead, before it veers into a ditch and explodes. Beke's loader, Unterscharführer Kurt Knispel, already an ace with 68 kills, rams another round home with mechanical calm. Up! Fire! Another T-34 dies, hatches blowing open like champagne corks. But the numbers are obscene. For every Soviet tank destroyed, 2 more surge forward, using speed and terrain to close the range where the Tiger's long gun loses its edge. A T-34-85, new model, 85mm gun, slips through a gap in the German line and rams a Panzer IV broadside. Steel shrieks. The lighter German tank flips. Soviet infantry riding the T-34's rear deck leap off, hurling Molotovs into open hatches. Beke watches a Panzer III commander, a boy he trained last winter, stagger out engulfed in flame, beating at his burning uniform with bare hands. Then the wind shifts. A lone FW-190 streaks overhead, dropping a single 500 kilos bomb into the densest Soviet cluster. The explosion carves a crater 20 meters wide, flinging tank turrets like toys. In the stunned silence that follows, Beke spots the trap. The T-34s are funneling into a shallow valley, perfect killing ground. But only if the Germans hold the ridgeline. He keys the mic. All Tigers fall back to phase line. Gelb, let them come. His driver throws the Tiger into reverse, tracks chewing earth. The retreat is deliberate, almost leisurely. The Soviets smell blood. By 1600 hours, over 600 T-34s have crammed into the valley, engines idling, commanders shouting over the roar. They think the Germans are broken. They are wrong. From concealed positions on the reverse slope, 50 Tigers and a dozen new Elephant tank destroyers open fire at point-blank range. The valley becomes a cauldron. Shells tear through rear armor, where the T-34's slope means nothing. Fuel tanks rupture. Ammunition cooks off. In 15 minutes, the pride of the 5th Guards Tank Army is reduced to a smoldering graveyard. Beke's Tiger alone claims 12 kills, hull streaked with molten aluminum from penetrated T-34s. Knispel, face black with powder, just nods when Beke claps his shoulder. No cheers, just the hollow satisfaction of survival. As the sun drops, Beke climbs down from Tiger 100 and lights a cigarette. With a Zippo taken from a dead American Lend-Lease pilot months earlier, the flame flickers across his face, carving shadows deep as trenches. He looks over the valley, hundreds of T-34s twisted into scrap, crews frozen in escape hatches, the steppe itself seeming to bleed oil. The mockery is finally silenced, but the cost is written in the empty seats of every German tank company from here to Berlin. And somewhere in the smoke, a new sound rises, the clatter of fresh Soviet tracks already moving up from reserve. The T-34 is down, but far from out. One final reckoning remains, one that will turn the entire Eastern Front into a graveyard of empires. The Vistula is a black ribbon under a sky the color of old pewter. Ice floes grind against the banks like broken teeth. You can hear the river before you see it, a low, constant moan beneath the thunder of distant artillery. Hauptmann, Kurt Riefenstahl, promoted twice since that first dawn in 1941, demoted once for insubordination, crouches in the frozen mud of a forward trench, greatcoat stiff with frost, a captured PPSH submachine gun across his knees. His last tank, a Panther OSFG named Greif, lies belly up 2 kilometers back, turret blown off by a JS-2's 122mm round. The crew didn't make it out. He still smells their burning hair. Behind him, the remnants of the 19th. Panzer Division, 40 tanks when the offensive began, now 12, wait in hull-down positions among the skeletal orchards. Their engines are wrapped in blankets. The fuel is a vile mix of aviation spirit and captured Soviet diesel. Every start is a gamble. Across the river, red flares arc into the night like blood in water. The signal. Marshal Georgy Zhukov's 1st Belarusian front is coming. At Aero 445, the ground trembles. Not artillery, something heavier. T-34 rams emerge from the fog in perfect echelons. White winter camouflage streaked with mud. Red stars glowing faintly under infrared lamps. Behind them, JS-2 heavy tanks lumber like moving bunkers. The T-34s move fast, 45 km/h on packed snow, closing the range before the Panthers can warm their guns. Riefenstahl watches through scavenged Soviet binoculars. The lead T-34 bears a familiar chalked slogan, Zarodinu. Same phrase as the one that spared him in 1941. Different tank. Same nightmare. The first Panther opens fire, and 70mm ricochet 42. Round strikes a T-34's turret. Front. Penetration. The Russian tank erupts in a secondary blast that lights the fog orange. But the others keep coming, using speed and smoke to mask their advance. A T-34-85 rams a drainage ditch, belly flops, and keeps firing from the hull. Gun depression impossible, but 85 mm. He rounds chewing the earth in front of the German line. Riefenstahl's runner, a 17-year-old from Dresden, whispers, "There's too many." "Herr Hauptmann." Kurt doesn't answer. He's counting. 112 T-34s in the first wave. More behind. By 500, the bridgehead is a cauldron. Panthers dual JS-2s at 300 meters, long 75s against 122s, sparks cascading off armor like welding torches. A T-34 slips through the chaos and drops into a frozen irrigation canal. Hull invisible, turret traversing like a periscope. It fires 3 times. 3 Panthers brew up. Riefenstahl watches the canal erupt in flame as a Panzerfaust team crawls forward on their bellies, breath pluming white. The T-34 reverses, tracks screaming, and disappears into the fog. Ghost tank. At 0530, the order comes: fall back to phase line Adler, destroy bridges. Riefenstahl's company, what's left of it, withdraws under fire, laying mines, blowing culverts. He personally lights the fuse on the last pontoon bridge across the Vistula. The explosion lights the river red, ice cracking like gunfire. On the far bank, T-34s skid to a halt, commanders standing in hatches, watching the Germans retreat. No pursuit. They don't need to. The road to Berlin is open. That night, in a cellar beneath a half-collapsed manor house, Riefenstahl shares a bottle of captured vodka with a Soviet lieutenant whose T-34 bears the name Greif II, painted over the Panther's old kill rings. The Russian offers a toast. "To the tank that taught us both," Kurt drinks. The vodka burns all the way down. Outside, the T-34s keep rolling west, engines echoing like the heartbeat of an empire that refused to die. 4 months later, one of those tanks will park beneath the Brandenburg Gate, and Kurt Riefenstahl, walking out of a POW cage near Minsk, will look back once at the steppe, now green with spring, and realize the laughter of June 1941 finally, irrevocably, belonged to someone else.